Now I would like us to go inside again. Going inside is the simplest thing. I do it now wherever I am. I can be hanging from a strap in a tram, hanging, and suddenly I am reminded. I just look inside with my eyes open, or I close my eyes, and I am immediately inside of me. And I say, oh my goodness, I forgot. Isn't it lovely? Yeah. Nobody would know. Except me. You see, you don't get anything. There's nothing to show anybody. You just do it for me. Like now. When I say like now, I mean like now. I in that body, listening to these words, am doing it now. I can do it any moment. That's the practice. That's the practice. The mind will want to think about it. The most difficult thing is to know that the mind is going to try to analyze it. You cannot. The mind is distant. When we go into the silence in a minute, I will be looking into nothing, and in that nothing, I will have an awareness being distance, of my mind or myself on the perimeter of this emptiness that I am, trying to enter. You will actually feel it trying to think. So let's do that so that we can see this mind trying to understand, trying to enter where it cannot enter. So please, close the eyes and focus the attention into me. Now the first mode of my intelligence is clarity. And that's what we've been using so far. Now I'm asking you to use the second mode of intelligence. And the second mode of intelligence is feeling. So I ask you now to feel in me, is there any good in me? Now it's a subtle feeling. And I'll define the word good. Is there any peace in me that I can feel? Any rightness? Any love? Any relief? That I don't have to try anymore, that this is good? Is there a feeling of coming homeness? These are all the feelings, the subtle feeling of me. This feeling is not dependent on any external circumstance. The feeling of me is implicit, is immediate, is right, and has no opposite. It is such a relief to start coming home to me. Do I feel that? It is so subtle that it's there. Now, when you are not with the speaker, I suggest that you do both of these. Looking with clarity, and then looking with feeling. And sink into the feeling without any thought or analysis. Now see if you can see the mind trying on the outskirts to get into this place that it cannot enter. Trying to make me think. Trying to distract me from the good that is here now. The being of me. Now if you think, just come back to me, just shake it off. Come back to me. There is no movement in this. It is just immediate. No distance, no time. As I go into me, my imagination will recreate parts of my body. I'll suddenly be aware of my arm, my leg, or some other part of my body. Do not be disturbed by this. Just be easy and allow it to be. Keep focusing on me, and the imagination will disappear. For eventually, the whole body disappears. But as soon as I mention body, of course, the mind will recreate it in most cases. But I mention it so that you will know that as I descend into this state, that the body, because I have entered another world, disappears. The mind is terrified when it thinks of losing the body. So it works very hard to imaginatively recreate it. Don't fight it. Just keep looking into the still, the silence, and the images will disappear. Now, still looking into me, open the eyes and enter the world of objects. Don't leave me there. Be there and here at the same time. My awareness came out of me. It came up. What's this it? What is this it? It came up. The life. I am life. I am the intelligence of life. That's what I am in that body listening to these words. I am life. And what I am doing every moment is I, life, who am formless. Inside of me, that's why there's nothing in me. It is pure life before it takes form. That's what I'm looking at, and that's what I am. This life rises and enters the brain. It is the brain that creates the forms of life. It is the miracle of existence. But life before it hits the brain is formless. That's what I am looking into this day. That is what I am. Formless life. Now I ask you, or what is the first form that life takes on this planet? Obviously, the one that you call your body. You could not see the flowers. You could not hear the birds. You cannot see any form without a body. So you see, the first form of life creates all the forms of life. You will notice tonight when you go to sleep. that all forms of life, meaning the whole universe, disappears when that form disappears. In other words, when this magnificent intelligence that I am in that body listening to these words comes up from the deep, from the black, when it comes up, I suddenly become aware of my body as I did this morning. And as I become aware of my body, I become aware of the surroundings around me, the whole universe. And tonight when I go to sleep, when my intelligence breathes back, as it were, when I take my in-breath tonight, when this vast intelligence that I am takes my in-breath tonight, which I do every night, I pull back from my form, my formal life, and I become formless again, passing through those impressions of forms formed by the top part of my psyche. But sooner or later I pass through those into deep formless life, deep dreamless sleep. And then, as sure as day follows night, for 20 or 90 years, I shall breathe out again. And as I breathe out, all the forms start to tumble ahead of me and the whole universe appears out of my first form, my body. And I play around in my universe of form with my formal body taking its place amongst them all, and then I can't stand it too long to hold my breath out, can I? You've got to breathe in. So I breathe in. Oh, thank goodness. And I breathe in and all the forms go back into my brain and disappear. And I, the life behind it all, am content in the formless place called deep dreamless sleep or death. Which do you want? They're both the same. I ask you to live from that place inside yourself, to do what the animals who are instinctive cannot do, because it has been given to this animal, this human animal, to do it. This is the evolution of the animal kingdom. We are the evolution of the animal kingdom. To do what other animals cannot do, to use the divine power of creativity to reflect on life which is in me before it comes into form. There it is. Nothing to speak of, nothing to think about, and yet, would you say it is not real? It is real as it's realer than your very existence. And yet it is nothing. Now I trust that when I stop any time, that you immediately use it to connect with me. Like now. Don't be distracted. Stay with me. Whatever happens, stay with me. Now stay with me, whatever happens. Well, you can be aware, but stay with me. You will know, of course, that this is the place that you have read of self-realization, of God-realization, of being God, all those ultimate expressions of something that is beyond the understanding of the rational mind. This place is accessible to the intelligence of everybody, provided I, this intelligence, am willing. I must be willing. If I am not willing, I cannot even address this place, let alone descend into it. Frequently, life as circumstances will force me to address this place. but because it is a forced addressment that is often extremely painful, such as, I might have the child that I love taken from me. I might lose my partner whom I love very dearly. I might lose my business, all my money. Some way or other, life is continually forcing us to look into this place, this mystery, which of course is the source out of which I, the intelligence, came into existence. So it is not surprising that the great intelligence of life, which can be called God, the great intelligence of life, forces us to look into the nothing, which is, of course, the everything. But this nothing is the everything because it is nothing. And I have to have the willing, to turn against the stream of existence that is always projecting into the outward world. I have to have the will to go against that stream. Otherwise I get swept, like most of humanity, going nowhere but into everlasting existence, great today, depressed tomorrow. In returning to my source, I have to pass through what I have been. What I have been is my emotional or mental unhappiness. Otherwise, without the pain, I'm nothing to speak of. You see the children playing down there around the pool. They are nothing to speak of in the sense of pain, depression. All you can say about them is they seem to be enjoying themselves. It's so easy, so pleasant, so natural. It's just, there's nothing happening. That's because there's no unhappiness. But if one of the children should suddenly start to cry and scream, wouldn't all our eyes go onto it? Wouldn't we know that something was happening? Wouldn't we say, what's wrong with that little child? We would put our attention on it, wouldn't we? In the midst of nothing but easiness, nothing to speak of, just a pleasant summer day. So it is inside of us. Can you face the present day inside of me and not be attracted to focus on the scream inside myself? Can you? Or is the scream so different and so varied inside myself that you can't for long keep my intelligence on the pleasant summer day inside of me? That is my being. That does not mean that circumstances aren't going to come. Changing circumstances are going to come. But everything returns to me. No unhappiness can be sustained. Myself, the intelligence that is attached to myself, will always try to bring unhappiness into any pleasant day or circumstance. Always. It is the great spoiler is myself. And its name is fear. Myself's name is fear. So as I go into me, I have to pass through myself. If I am willing to go into me, like when I go to sleep tonight, I will withdraw my attention, my intelligence, from its identification with the external world. And I will have to face this subconscious level of self which sits on top of me or before me. This is where I dream. As I abandon existence and leave it behind, including my body, I pass through the dream state. All sorts of chattering goes on there as well, as I know. For this is also part of the monkey mind, which never ceases chattering and dreaming and putting up silly pictures and going this way and that. But as I go deeper into myself, I hit on deeper levels of dream. And some of them become significant to me and even predictive of the future, because the future is only the past repeating itself, and it is all inside of me. I have to pass through myself in sleep to get into me, which is the place of deep dreamless sleep. But in the parallel of returning consciously to me, my source, I have to pass through myself, which consists of all the pains that I have had since I was born. I'll put that a better way. I have to pass through my attachments to those pains. The events and the pains attached to them are okay. They form part of my experience. That's how I learned. When I see a drunken man with his eyes looking for someone to fasten on, that's how I learned not to look into his eyes, but to keep walking, because I know he's looking for trouble. Something that someone younger than myself would not perhaps have known. So it is my experience that I have learnt not to look there. That might threaten my survival, my beautiful body made by God. And I am always impelled to protect the survival and the well-being of my beautiful body made by God or life. That is natural. So it is not my experience of life. It is not my experience of finding my lover making love to another man and the terrible feeling of betrayal that went on in me. It's not the experience of that that is the problem. It is my attachment to that event. It is through my mind reflecting on that event, on those emotions of pain, so that I think about the old emotions of pain, which have to have happened in the past, because in the present there's only the state of shock, isn't there? Even if my child is killed in the present, there is only the state of shock, isn't there? Shock is like a bomb going off, isn't it? It's such a blast that it blows everything away and leaves the sort of vacuum of silence and stillness, of nothingness. That's what shock is. And in that moment you will notice I cannot think. I say I am dazed. I don't know what's happening. Tell me what's happening. What's happening is that all my attachments have been blown away by this terrible disaster. I am now facing nothing. And the human mind can't stand it. Or it's always trying to make something, to become something. So in the face of nothing in such a situation, the human mind, as quickly as possible, wants to think about what it has lost. Wants to think about the past. And by attaching itself to the past, it then recreates the disaster, recreates it psychologically and emotionally, whereas it has passed. And all that has happened is that a part of me that I have invested with my attachment, my energies, has gone forever. And that's what life is like. But my human mind wants to attach itself to that which is gone, that phantom. And so I think about how beautiful she was, how wonderful she was. I look at her photographs and I say, what will I ever do? How can I live without you? What do you mean? How can you live without her or him? You get to the breakfast table and you eat your breakfast. Or you don't eat for a couple of days, and then you'll have to have some water. Life goes on. Life goes on. All attachment dies. Love does not die, but attachment does. And life goes on. But if I attach myself to my attachment, I do not allow life to go on. I attach my life to myself, the emotions of hurt and pain that I have suffered, and I think about them, and therefore I generate more emotion and pain, and I am then a victim of life instead of life itself. This is what happens from self-consideration. Now are you with me, man and woman? I am going to tell you the truth. But it is such an awful truth that the human mind and emotions do not want to hear it. So I have to repeat it wherever I go, so that you can live it and see the truth of it in your own experience. And that truth is this: while I consider myself, I will be unhappy. The whole world has been taught to consider myself. In other words, to consider my feelings, my own feelings. To go by my feelings. If I feel hurt, then I say I am hurt. If I feel jealous, then I say I am jealous. Utter rot. Indeed, myself is jealous, and myself is hurt, but I am not hurt, and I am not jealous. Never. It is myself that is hurt. So if I consider my feelings, I will consider my hurts, my past pains, for all my feelings are associated with past pain, the need to defend myself from past pain. The fear of having past pain repeated. That's why I consider myself and I say, no, I'm not going to love her. I can't go all the way because she might demand something from me and then she'll leave me and I'll suffer again like I remember I did. No, no, no. I'm always defending myself because that is selfishness. I'm afraid to go all the way. That's because everybody considers their self. Never consider your feelings. Never. Are you listening to me? What do I do? For God's sake, what do I do if I don't consider my feelings? If I don't consider myself? Well, it's pretty obvious where I come from. You be true to the situation. Now, in every circumstance, it is a situation. Are you being true to the situation in your life, or are you being true to your feelings? Anywhere that you are unhappy or angry, depressed or emotional about, you are being true to yourself, true to your feelings, considering your own fear and selfishness. If you would only be true to the situation, you would indeed have to pass through your fear, pass through yourself. But then, as I've said, that's the only way back, is to pass through yourself. And your feelings are yourself. Right, now let us go into me. Let's go into this place that I am speaking from, right? The honesty of the situation. Now the situation that here I am, sitting on that chair listening to these words, this is the situation. This is called a day of being. So I have my intelligence, and now I am going to use my intelligence not as I use it most of the time in my daily life. I'm going to reverse that and turn the intelligence inside my body into a place that is really nothing, which is called me. So please, breathe out, then breathe in 3 or 4 times. This steadies the self, which gets a little bit anxious about facing me. Then close the eyes, and using the first mode of my intelligence, which is clarity, look into me. Now it begins as though it were black or dark behind the eyelids, but that disappears, and then I can truly say, there is nothing in here. I'm asking you to look into me where there is nothing. This is the place of consciousness, of emptiedness, of absence of anything. And that place is the place of true love, in which there is no person and nobody, just me. And it is such a blessed relief that then I can use the second mode of my intelligence, and I can actually feel the subtle feeling of relief inside of me. Ah, how good it is. And I tell you that as I do this, I am traveling into deep inner space, just as assuredly as if I were traveling like an astronaut into deep outer space. This is the descent towards God, towards the unknowable. But it is me. It is me. There is nothing more intimate, because it is me. So here I am being true to the situation. I have come here for a day of being. My intelligence, as my feeling or clarity, is now looking into me, and me disappears as I disappear, and there is then this extraordinary state of being. It cannot be described. It can only be. So I am true to the situation. Do not think, because it is myself that thinks. And here, I am just the being behind myself. Now this state of being, I, to begin with, enter it by looking at nothing. So there is no object in this state. I, the subject, am looking at nothing. Now an extraordinary thing happens when I, the subject, look at nothing, no object. When the object disappears, the subject, I, disappear. That's what's happening in the state of being. No I, no object. No object, no I. So it is not even true to say, I am being. Well, that suggests subject, and therefore being is object. It is not. There is just being. And thank God, I disappear. And yet, this is still is, whatever this is. This, finally, is the state of deep dreamless sleep, where there is nobody to know anything, including myself. I cannot know anything, because there is no need to know anything. It is all here. Now, still being, open the eyes and come into the world of awareness, where all knowing is. This is the world of the human mind. The state of being in there now is the state of consciousness. It is not a state of awareness, it is a state of consciousness. I am aware out here. Now both states are quite harmonious. They fit in together, two hemispheres of one existence. Don't make a problem of either. The problem is, we've made a problem of this existence by cutting this existence off from me. The more I acknowledge me, the more I bring harmony into my whole existence. Without this, you cannot find God, find the truth, be the truth. You must acknowledge me. Now, some masters confuse people by asking them to acknowledge me as me being the master. No. You must acknowledge me in there first. Then you will acknowledge me, the master, rightly. God must come first, before any form. What I acknowledge, I get. If I acknowledge how unhappy I am, by talking about it day in and day out, by thinking about my unhappiness, what do I get? I become a more unhappy person. I then attract to me unhappy persons, because who'd want to listen to me but an unhappy person who would want to tell me their unhappy story after I tell them my unhappy story? And that makes me even more unhappy. So what I acknowledge, I get. What do you acknowledge most? Yourself or me? Now, because of the Western environment, we invariably acknowledge my feelings more than my feeling of me. Now, this business of feelings and feeling, I would like to make that clear. I have many feelings, and they vary. And those feelings respond a lot to external stimulus. The feeling of me does not vary. It is constant. I can describe its aspects such as the feeling of love, sweetness, tenderness, rightness, coming homeness, rest. All these, just descriptions of the one feeling, of life that is me inside that body, the formless life. Like now. The more I acknowledge that, by doing it, I can't think about it. I've got to be it. That is acknowledgement. The more I do that, the more it opens up. Because it has been closed off by myself. And by acknowledging me as we are doing today, I open it up. For a while, myself can start to get disturbed. It is a big, black nothing is me. As I say, like the space between the stars. And myself is very terrified of nothing, no thing. So myself is likely to get afraid. When that happens, be still. Endeavor to be still. There is nothing for myself to fear. Myself, indeed, has to be reduced. My selfishness has to be reduced, and that reduces myself. But myself does not have to die until this body dies. Myself is going to die with this body. So it has a dread of nothing. Because what you're looking into there is deep dreamless sleep or death. Like now. So my little self might tremble. But the more that I do this, the more myself starts to become aware that there is something else apart from myself. Myself is likely to say, I never believed in God. But God is. Whatever that means, I don't know what it means. But God is. Why? Because you see, as me opens up, that is God to myself. And then the conviction will grow stronger and stronger. And myself will become a servant of me. And the servant will be pleased to do anything for me. It will give up its fear. Because me, that we are acknowledging today, is in charge of my life. So it's a switch over from myself to me, that's all. A complete inversion or conversion. That's what you're doing this day. And it comes from acknowledging me in the first instance. That's first thing first. The first thing is love. And love is me. That's first thing first. Acknowledge me in all thy ways, and I will direct thy paths. So the self must become the willing disciple of me.